There we go again.
Good afternoon, mate. Are you well?
I am good. I'm good. It's always good as you say in podcast land. I looking forward to getting into a Q&A that we're going to do today. I feel like
Yep.
now with that new group we've started on Facebook, two promoters, one group, like 500 members so far, and whatever backlog of questions we never get through before, but let's say there was 100 of them. There's an extra new 100, so we're going to make an attempt today to bash through as many as possible.
Yeah. You are the king of social media, aren't you? You've every time I like go offline for a couple of days, I come back. There's a new thing going on. Two promoters, one group is the new thing. It's good though. I think it was a very good idea of yours.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where, as I explained to people on Facebook, I'm sorry that's not an Instagram or else, but there's no option to make an Instagram group. You can't replicate what happens in Facebook. So if you don't use Facebook, then I apologise, you can't play a part in that community, but it's the only place you can host it. But we had, at first, we weren't even going to do any social media accounts. We're like, let's see, if no one listens, what's the point of wasting our time? And then we started the pages, including Instagram and Facebook. But that's great for us getting information out to the public, but it's terrible for the public getting information back to us. So you just have every week people saying, where can I post questions? Where can I ask questions? Where can we discuss these topics? I mean, all it is the post that you're doing, and then we've got a right to reply, but there is nowhere for us to generate conversation. So I thought, okay, like the Kofi and like the Instagram page, and I'm sure in some point like the TikTok, it's sort of inspired by the fan base, and they wanted the group. And fair play, they've followed it through. 500 members of them so far in there, and all contributing.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not that au fait with how these sort of things work, the group is a much more a fan-driven thing where you can talk and you can talk to each other or you can talk to us or whatever. Whereas the Facebook page that we have is like we post something and then you reply to it.
Yeah.
So the group is a much more interactive thing. So if that sounds good, then go and have a look at
And
it.
it doesn't, but I don't know how it's become this sort of like, let's get Gav group with the fucking Tintin
Mate,
memes.
the Tintin fucking thing. I mean, Lizzie, my wife, was saying that she was like, oh, "You can't be that happy about that." I'm like, "I'm just fucking glad I'm not Gav. I'm taking it."
You're fuck
She's
happy
like,
with
"But isn't Tintin the main one?" I'm like,
it.
"I don't care."
I mean, find that is such a bizarre way to look at it. Because I'm just looking at it because I don't know the context of Tintin, but the big guy with the beard certainly looks like the better character here. So I'm the wee fanny with the fucking ginger quiff and and the horrible fitting like cords and jumper on. Like how am I Tintin? So
The wee
I.
fanny with the ginger quiff is how our audience obviously see you. I don't know.
It's clearly out there. You see me, the wee fanny with the ginger cliff. I'm like, fuck, I don't even have that much hair. So, I don't. The Tintin thing seems to have grasped it. And then there's the questions now. People know that they've got a place they can put the question. I think the way that I'll handle that, you could pitch in at any point, James. Don't let me stop you. Is we'll delete the questions that we've answered, and then we've always got to go to a pinned post that we know that the unanswered questions are still there, and then it just saves that confusion of what's there and what's not there. So that's very good. I'm not able to talk about music or the pod or whatever until I get one thing off my. This isn't a movie podcast, right? But have you seen that new film Trap?
No,
Do you watch films?
not since I had a child 6 years ago. No.
Well, I'm not a movie buff. I wouldn't pretend to be a great movie reviewer, but I watched that film Trap not yesterday, the day before, and it's easily the worst thing that I've seen in the last decade, right? And not only that, it's so offensively bad. I can't get it out of my mind. I feel I need an outlet to shout at people about how shit this fucking movie Trap is. And this is my outlet.
Did you go to the cinema to see it?
No, thank fuck. No, I borrowed my cousin's dodgy box, okay?
So it's
And
called Trap.
Trap, it's that M. Night, and I'm not going to butcher his surname, but he's the director that done The Sixth Sense. And
Yep.
since then, every movie's supposed to have this fucking stupid twist at the end, which is its own curse because you get to the end and the twist is so fucking stupid. You think, am I not getting it? It can't possibly be that bad. So you're watching it, and then you find out afterwards that the woman singing on stage, the whole thing seems set up around the woman singing on stage, performing her music, is the guy's daughter. So it's one big fucking 2 hour promo video for his daughter's music career, but you're sat there watching it in the middle, written as if a fucking child needs to finish their English homework to go out and play. That the plot's like that. The acting is so bad you think it's fucking comedy. It's shot like a comedy, but nobody's laughing. And it's just, I got to the end, right to the final scene. Every single scene is somehow worse and more painful to watch than the one before, right to the closing credits. I'm like, this is fucking horrific. I need to tell people before they go anywhere and see this film, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. So
feels like that's your like interview tape for like the BBC. You're the new BBC film reviewer. That would be great.
Yep, yeah, I'll take it. Put it everywhere. I am pinning my reputation as a movie reviewer to that. It is
okay.
Half a star out of 5. Fucking terrible. Don't watch it. If you're thinking about watching it, if you did like it and you listen to this podcast, unsubscribe immediately.
Well, this is our clearly our new thing that we're going to expand out into. So Lose Bruise, he annoyed me this week because he was slagging off the Rings of Power on Facebook. Just as I was about to start watching the second series, and it felt like really bad timing. When someone tells you something's shit before you've watched it, it's a bit annoying. So,
Lose Bruise. Let's just what he's here before we get into the question. Let's just start with him. He has released a honey banana. Now, is that a combination you wanted in your burgers?
Well, apparently it's the most requested returning sauce. So
yep. So I mean, I we need to give it a bash. It sounded a wee bit when he said use in place of chutneys and ketchup. So it's like, okay, I get it. It's supposed to be that whole bit of sweetness on top of your burger. So I'm going to try it. But
I mean, if he wants someone to review it, he knows our addresses.
No, but after that trap film review, does it really want? Yes, Lose Bruise. Oh, mate, that fucking group. Did you read? So the guy said he thought the sauce was called Custies, as in the name, the female name, Custies Metal Hands. And Lou's probably sitting going, see, considering that fucking Gav plugs that sauce, that's of no value to me, and there's no commission for me or anything, a plugging cuss these metal hands, as in the band. And he's going, it's not really selling because everybody's typing in Kirsty's metal hands. And some guy's laughing because his wife's called Kirsty. And he's going, oh, he's going about your sauce again, Kirsty. Like, how else can you say it? Cuss. C-U-R-S-E, cuss these metal hands. And then somebody was taking the piss going, dinner celestial birds. He thought, dinner sells less till it burns. I'm like, okay.
Right. There's a dictionary. We need like a dictionary of like, or translation.
It just...
Kirsty.
If people are genuinely hearing Kirsty, as in the woman's name, instead of Kirsty's, how are you managing this podcast at all? I mean, like, what bits? What festival do you think it is at a run? Like, is it like white dogs with black spots on them, or what's the? We're absolutely fucked. I mean, din of celestial birds, Kirsty's metal hands. I mean, that is the only way. When you say it back to me, that's how it sounds like I say it to you.
I'm totally tuned into you, so I don't know what these people are talking about, mate. I've got it.
Thank you. losebruise.co.uk POD15 gets you 15% off your order. Go and support the guy because he supports us.
Yeah, do it. So what have you got going on at the moment, Gav? Anything in Damnation world?
I mean, I'm in it now. I am in it now. See, this is the bit there's never you don't know the point where the switch goes, like tour managers, production managers, because it's always at various stages. But right now seems to be the bit like, Damnation's next. Let's go and ask for the hotels that were not part of the deal. Let's go and ask for the visas that they said they would sort. Let's go and talk about ground transport that wasn't part of the deal. And at the minute, there's a lot of digging out contracts and saying, that's not there, mate. That's not there, mate. And then things like, for a band with visas, it's not good enough just to go like, oh, we're no sorting them, because then you're lying in your bed and you think, well, who the fuck is sorting them? I mean, I hope it's getting back to the band that they have to sort their visas. So, at the minute, there's a lot of that. The production's kind of come into focus for bands.
We've got a person, by the way, I could have told you this off air, that when there's something like immigration-y, visa-y, certificate of sponsorship stuff, that we just point the bands at. That person doesn't work for us. They're an external expert on such things.
Would they happen to be based in London and have some sort of affiliation to other events?
I don't know. Don't know.
Right, okay. Well, there's a guy. I just want to say.
Oh, you've got a guy as well.
That's
Okay.
not what he does. That's not what he does. Like publicly or for me to say. But we do have a guy, which is fine
Okay.
because if you've got bands that are a bit like really worried about, because I guess it's a conversation. This is a podcast in itself. But the paid permitted engagement letters that we're still using for Europe. Some bands are happy to come in and have experience of coming in and getting in absolutely fine with them. And some bands have had different experiences because you're always down at the point of contact, that border official, like how clued up are they at the time? So some of them are a bit like, no, we prefer the certificate of sponsorship. Now they cost. The PPE letters are just us saying this band's a professional act of repute and they're coming to perform at this event, which is a tax-paying event in the UK. Here's all the signatories and people you need to contact. And those have worked to this point. But there's been situations where the border control officers a bit like, I don't really get that. It should be a certificate of sponsorship. Those come from someone who's able to provide them, and Damnation isn't currently able to provide those. So we need to pay for them. And then there's a mix of the European bands that are going with PPE letters, and some of them want a certificate of sponsorship. And then visas are just visas like they've always been. If you're coming from Australia, Japan, or America, you just need a visa. So, aye. But at the deal point, I'd rather just add money to the fee than be left with visas to work out. You know what I mean? So a lot of bands that they book an agent to start to say, okay, you add the extra 500 quid, whatever it is to the fee, we'll just sort it at our end. And then you get to this point 8 months, 9 months later, and they go, where's the visas? And you're like, right, okay, we're going back over this again. But you can't just leave it to the point of the week of, and then people are still fanning about trying to find visas.
Yeah, it's not fun. Sounds like you know more than I do about it. So
it's getting busier. It's getting busier. By the time we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, September 10th, about an hour ago, 2 hours ago, we announced Norna are playing. I gave you the wink about in the last podcast. So really good reaction to those guys. Tomorrow or tonight, we're going to announce Discharge, doing a celebration of Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing, which was released in 1982.
So that's your replacement for...
That's the replacement for Sick of All. So that was a scramble in itself. And we were really chuffed we were able to get... I mean, they're not going to be able to do the full album. They're a bit like, we just don't have enough time to nail the full album, but we're going to get like 10 tracks of 14. So it'll be like a celebration of that album and then some bangers at the side. So delighted with that. Tomorrow, the final band for Damnation will be A.A. Williams, who you're obviously very very well from our performances at Art Tangent. So delighted to have A.A. Williams going to be opening the main stage.
Right.
And then Thursday, if you're one of the people that got up out of your bed at 6 or 7 in the morning and listen to this podcast, you'll find this out before the rest are a bit early. And Thursday morning, we will announce A Swarm of the Sun, who are another pelagic band. Not sure if they've even played the UK before, but fucking brilliant. I mean, really sort of progressive post-rock, metal, hints of doom. Have you heard much of A Swarm of the Sun yet?
So, yes, and so 2 nights ago, I was listening to their new album, and I was thinking, I need to talk to you about it because it sounds right up your street. Because it's kind of like on the edge between post metal and post rock. I think I don't really know if they call themselves a post rock band or a post metal band, but probably post.
Probably neither. Probably neither.
Yeah, but really good. And I remember speaking to Robin from Pelagic a few years ago about them because their classic album, which the name escapes me, he thinks is basically one of the best albums ever made of that ilk. So they come very highly thought of and recommended. And yeah, they've never played ATG, but are certainly on my list. And fuck yeah, that's a fucking great booking. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those ones because these are. So I'm trying to think. So I think that is it Zenith is the one, or is it the Riffs? There's one of the albums. Know. So I listened back when I was doing my going through sort of Meryl Streak and Soft Play and that at the side of a pool in Spain. I don't know, but that had been March, April. This was one of the ones. This is when I kind of like Swarmers because they asked about playing, but it was going to be a bit pricey because they're flying in. And I'm not a band that when we announce these guys on Thursday, there's going to be a lot of people like, oh, I'll go and check them out. I don't know that name, so it's not like you're getting an LLNN where there's a huge, an pelagic band where there's a huge demand for. So you're a bit like, okay, we're going to do this, but you're listening, you're like, they're just great. They're great. And that album, I'm sure, was the one that sort of sealed the deal. Because I hadn't heard the new stuff, obviously, because it hadn't been released till last week. So that was the album. The album that Robin's talking about is the album, might be the Riffs. is the one that I heard was like, fuck me, this is incredible. And Damnation fans will be on board even if they don't currently know what they are. And then the final band, which is an absolute peach, which has literally just got over the line in the last couple of days because that whole sick of it all situation just created a a bit of a fucking bun fight because we're quite experienced with this now, these sort of panic bookings right against the wall because we've done it with when Damnation 2021 completely collapsed in the sense that all the American bands left with like 8 weeks or 3 months to go. We had to replace him. So we've done that whole Paradise Lost playing Gothic and getting Carcass in and all the rest of the UK bands that were available. And then we lost Ministry and managed to turn that around. So when we lost Sick of It All, we've done this dance a couple of times before. As you say, the way you done it with Clowncore and Spiritualized. And we went out and chased a bunch of bands, including Discharge and the one we're going to announce, which isn't the same ilk at all, but we just needed a name that was going to do something very popular. So they both became available, which means the final black metal slot that would have went on the Cult Never Dies, but would probably have been a smaller UK band, that gets sacrificed for this more high profile band we're going to put in the main stage. So I'll all explain itself by Saturday. You'll have both the lineup posters, exactly how they look. So it's just been a long-winded way answering your question. I'm in the middle of it all right now. It's all happening. But at this point, if we could pull it all together, then we're going to be laughing because everything else, ticket sales are great, and everything else seems to be coming along swimmingly.
And by the weekend, you've got a full final lineup poster for both days.
Yes, and that's always a nice. I mean, we discussed in the last one. It's nice to have those wee bits of marketing power left, something for people to still be checking out interest. But at this point, you really want. I mean, by a post-art tangent, we really aim to have everything done and dusted. The Sick of It All situation sort of put a spanner on the works a bit. There's actually still a band, as we talk discussion now, there's still a band out there, a big hardcore band, that an offer's still kind of on the table. And if they come back and say, yes, we'll do it, we will honour the agreement and we'll just expand the day. And then another band will come in and do another album set. So at the minute, I'm a bit like, I hope they just come back and say they can do it in 2025 because it's starting to get a wee bit out of hand. Because the band's Discharge and then this second band, they've ended up a lot more expensive than what it was for Sick of It All because it's two sizable bands doing 2 album sets. You know what I mean? So if a third one comes in and says they'll do it as well, it's a bit like, fuck, people better show up for the Friday. How about you, James?
Sounding good.
How about you, James?
Yeah, same. Well, it's my birthday this weekend, so I have been doing what I do on my birthday, which is buying records and having a few beers. So I bought, you can see behind me, The Locust, Plague Soundscapes, and Judy Christmas. I got a Russian Circles album and Arab Strap. So yeah, I've been having a nice time. But work is pretty mad. I've spoken to 2 booking agents. I feel like there's an episode here somewhere. I've spoken to 2 booking agents recently whose names I won't mention, who have said to me, no one ever gets any time off in the music industry. And everyone's just a bit, at the moment, it feels like the general vibe in the camps is that everyone's a bit tired after the summer and it hasn't stopped. Nothing's stopped. We're just going again. So yeah, it's kind of how I feel. As of today, I've got the 6 top slots at Trees now, all offered out, like 2 biggest bands on each day. Pretty similar at Arctangent. And yeah, I'm just working my way through the 110 booking agents. No, I say this to every booking agent. We start every phone call with them going to me, fucking hell, you're hard to get hold of. And me going, I'm really, really sorry. Please don't be insulted. There's 110 of you. And then them going, there's not 110 of us. Of course there isn't. And I'm like, I've made a list. There is a fucking 110. And there really is.
Yeah. And how often do you speak to a booking agent and you mention our booking agent's name and they go, I don't know him or her.
Yeah.
And you're because they're Italian and they've got 4 wee bands in Italy, but 2 of these bands are very important to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And none of them are important to you.
Yeah, and the way I book my festivals, I was just explaining this. The way I book my festivals where I want great new bands is that you can't just go to the biggest of the big booking agents all the time. You need to go to all the booking agents because they're the ones that are slightly smaller and up and coming are the ones really digging into the underground to try and find acts, and that's really important to both Trees and ATG. So yeah, it's time consuming. I'm just before we came on here, I had 45 minutes on the phone with Hayden And he was pretty pissed off when I told him, that's the end of the time, mate. I've got to go. And, you know, I told him we had a budget meeting because I didn't want to tell him I was going to chat to you. And he'll never know, right? He doesn't listen to the podcast.
Isn't this potentially going to be our booking agent?
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, he should be promoting that you finish your phone call and come on to promote one pod.
So that's the thing. Even with an important agent to Arctangent, Hayden, really important to Arctangent, even 45 minutes on the phone is not long enough. So yeah, my life is just like phone calls at the moment and trying to get, after every phone call, get a few offers out, more phone calls. So
you do a lot of your deals over. See, that I find the problem with, I'm happy to talk to anyone on the phone. Fuck, I'll talk to myself in a room. But the problem with phone calls, I find, is that devil's in the detail. You know what I mean? Like the memos and oh, you said that. I mean, I've been caught a couple of times where you've done a deal on the phone and then afterwards there's a bit of a grey area where, oh well, you said the slot would actually be closer to this, or you said you might be, and then you're a bit like, aye, but that's not what the black and white said. And then like, I know, but I thought that you would start. It becomes a bit murky. Whereas I think I do 90% of my deals email only.
Yeah, so I never do a deal on the phone. But so the sort of conversation I just had with Hayden is Band X, I'm not going to name them, are going to be in Europe this summer. They're going to be doing those festivals that are a similar time to Arctangent. Would you like them at Arctangent? Yes. Me asking, are there going to be any other UK shows? No. Okay, so the band's flying over from outside Europe. They're going to do no other UK shows. It'll be an exclusive. So that's basically me working out what I then write down in the offer, because I know I'm prepared to pay this much money for an exclusive show. Whereas, you know, like Don Broco headline Cheese last year, I think they were allowed to do one other warm-up show, like a small warm-up show. I find it's always better to get those details out of the agent on the phone.
Yeah,
and then write it down. Otherwise, you write something down, which ends up being bollocks, and you end up doing a load of negotiation on email. Oh, can we do this? Can we do that? What about this? What about that?
You're totally right. And honestly, I would actually prefer some of those codes, because there is a lot of wasted emails go back and forth. Would you like Band X? Yes, I'd love Band X. Make an offer. I'm like, on what terms? On what terms? It's a 16-date UK tour with a support package. Is it going to be a one-off fly-in? Are you going to do an album set? Like what? Like, you're just asking me to just drop a number at the sky, and I don't know if they're going to play the fucking 4 nearby cities in the same run, or do all the festivals in August and the summer first. So I totally get that there's so much of the time. Like, again, we've done that when we've done the dark arts of booking a band. It's like they come to you with all the information. They've got a dossier of information of everything that they wanted to happen to that band, and you're sitting here completely in the dark. You have no idea what they're playing, how often they're playing it, how their fees are elsewhere, and they come at you and say, "Oh, give us a fee, give us a figure." Like, for what? Figure for what? You know what I mean? So I totally agree. That's probably a very healthy way of doing it.
Yeah, and so yesterday I was speaking to another agent about headliner at Trees, and you know, they were like, "Well, we want to do Glastonbury, Reading and Leeds might come in." And then they mentioned a couple of other festivals. So then I'm like, okay, my offer is this much if it's just 2,000 trees, but my offer is going to be, you know, 20 grand less if it's including Reading, another 10 grand for another festival. And then it's like me saying, well, I want to announce now, really. So that's part of the deal. Don't announce anything else for another couple of months. It's all like, you know, I don't have the power that someone like a Download or a Reading and Leeds would have. But if you get in there early and the band wants you enough, you've got a chance of making a good deal. So I don't know. There's too many agents. I can't keep on top of it. So I'm just like, you always be winging it, I think, to a certain extent.
How the fuck have we ended up almost half an hour? I said, James, let's have a Q&A, right? And bash through as much, and let's not go too long. And here we are like, have we done half an hour just chatting?
Have we really? Okay, I'm going to chat about one more thing.
Yep.
Was that you telling me don't chat about that thing?
No. Let's ultimately we'll get through as much as we get through. I mean, these questions are so good, and some of the ones come in even today are so good that some of them could make episodes by themselves. So let's just try and be organic about it.
Exactly. And look, I said to you the other day that I feel like some of the episodes we've done in the past will end up being little intros now. So like the dark arts of band booking, we just, without even planning to, we just did 5 minutes. We had no notes on that, 5 or 10 minutes on the dark arts of band booking again, didn't we? And it's new stuff. So I think it's interesting. So the final thing before we get into everyone's questions that we wanted to talk about is there's a BBC article this week called "Is the Rock Scene Still a Boys' Club?" Now, I felt that we covered this a couple of months ago when we talked about representation of women and other sort of marginalised groups on festival lineups, and we gave both our very open and honest opinions on that. And that was in episode
The People versus Two Promoters.
Right. So we're not going to go over all that again. So if anyone wants to hear what we think about it, then they can listen to that episode. But I thought this was relevant because it kind of puts a new slant on it. So basically, it came up because last week Slam Dunk announced their lineup, which featured only 2 acts that included women. The quote at the top of the article, the very first thing it says, is from a band called Cherem and their lead singer and guitarist Hannah. She says, "I'm so sick of seeing lineups that are predominantly cis, straight, white men all the time, because it's not just women that are overlooked. It's black people, it's trans people, it's marginalized people in general." So there's, as I said, there's a couple of new elements to this. Firstly, this was a BBC article specifically about Slam Dunk, which is like an independently owned festival like my own. I wouldn't want to be the festival that was named in that. It feels like a terrifying thing. This is not like a couple of people arguing in the Twitter,
forum. Yeah,
you know,
some fanzine,
like the horrible place that is Twitter, or in a group or whatever. This is the BBC writing a very serious article that interviews at least 3 different bands in it. And rather than it being an industry-wide thing, like the article is the rock scene a boys' club, but it just mostly talks about Slam Dunk. It feels like, for me, I'll be completely open here, this feels terrifying. It feels like they've announced less than half their lineup and they're getting BBC article, and there was a big piece on the radio about it as well. They're getting personally nailed by this. And that, for me, as a booker, albeit one that thinks I do the right thing with regards to this sort of stuff, it feels fucking scary. And secondly,
it puts a wee quick one in, because let's say your trees lineup is it's not going to be 50-50, but let's say you've done everything you can and got as many female artists or non-cis, male, straight, white dudes, right, into your lineup. But let's say your first announcement, because of the booking agency, the exclusivity, it just so happens that first bit goes out. And because Slam Dunk are a bit fucked now, because their second half of the lineup was out, and there's hundreds of women in it, it's going to be like, that's because of the BBC. And you'd be like, I thought we couldn't announce half these bands because of X, Y, and Z that you would never have known about. Now, that might not be the case. I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying that it's terrifying if you're a promoter and the first half of your lineup goes out and it looks very white, it looks very straight, and it looks very fucking male, then you might now start looking at it. Is that an issue?
Yeah, well, you've set me up beautifully for the second part of what I was going to say, which is that the general feeling from the article is that it's irrelevant whether or not this is the full lineup. There's a quote in the article which says it's like putting out a trailer for a film. It's the first look, and the look is 99% male. So basically, the point the person is making is that this is your big thing that you're announcing, and you should have made, regardless of what the full lineup will look like, you should have made a bigger effort to get some more non-white men on that announcement. Again, and I am sitting up and taking notice of that point, to be quite frank, when I'm thinking about 2000 Trees. Slam Dunk, on the other hand, said it wouldn't be appropriate or proportionate to comment when half of its acts were yet to be confirmed. So the article finishes by saying that the bands Cherem, Panic Shack, and Arcs all agree that the alternative scene can be a boys' club. So it just feels like this has been a big thing in our industry for a long time. I feel like this BBC article has put it way further up the agenda for me. It makes me nervous about, I've just talked about a load of offers I've made. Then you start going back and thinking, you really thinking, what did your first announcement look like? It's actually not for Arctangent, and I dare say not for Damnation, but for 2000 Trees, it's making me sit up and think. Now, the final thing I wanted to just quickly point out, and I don't know if this is relevant, but those 3 bands all played at 2000 Trees in the last 2 years. The 3 bands that are in this Cherem and Panic Shack both played on the main stage at 2000 Trees last year. And Panic Stage also played a second set, headlining a stage. So I feel like this article isn't attacking me because we've supported all three of those bands. But overall, it just leaves me with this underlying nervousness about what does our first announcement look like? Because just to repeat it again, it's like the trailer for a film. It's the first look.
Yeah.
And that look, shouldn't be
Yeah.
99% male.
As I say, we're not going to go all over this again because you can go to the people versus two promoters and listen to us talk about this for about 20 odd minutes. But there's a discussion on the group the other day, just an adult conversation about this. And one guy, Michael Miller, I think he came in and said, "Do you ever think sometimes the promoters think their main concern, not that we can't care about it as well, paying the mortgage, like keeping the fit?" And that, I think, is probably your top line when you start, that despite how important a lot of these factors can be, you get in there and the colour of someone's skin or what sex they are is not even. I hope that I don't need to be in a doku next year. I hope this is just me. This money that's good. I need to sell tickets. I mean, fuck me, if you can get me 30 bands of women that have played Damnation, I'll book all 30 of them if they're all fit. They're like happy to. In fact, go if you can get me Chelsea Wolf and Baroness and Code Orange and Mono, and you can get them all to say yes for next year, they're all welcome. Every fucking one of them's welcome. So aye, but when he made that point, it's like you can't say that as a promoter. Like, oh, at the end of the day, it's just about making money, so we've got a job. But there is a bit of it when you get in, you're just like, that is such a focus. Let's keep the festival alive, and once we get a thriving festival that is alive, then maybe we can tackle the other 99 issues that we also feel are important. But without a festival that's thriving alive, nothing else exists. There's no conversation.
No, and also, I've kind of realised that the way I book is, I book at the start, like now, I book frantically, right? Without thought, and just like randomly talking to agents and like fucking panicking and like trying to get out of the 150 bands I'm going to book for Trees, trying to get like 40 done that look good enough on a poster. And then I start going, have I got enough of this genre? Have I got enough of that genre? Have I got enough of this representation? And I start like, I almost finesse the lineup later down the line, whether that's genre split or representation of different groups. That's how I do it, because at the moment I'm in not panic, but just like trying to get loads of stuff done and confirmed. But that doesn't really fit well with this article, does it? That feels to me like part 2 of this article's coming if I release my lineup in a month's time, and it's predominantly male focused, which I'm not suggesting it is, but
you have to say that some of that's unfair, because if you're sitting there and you've got 100% of your lineup and there is a good diversity across all the lineup, but there's a nuance to it that someone who isn't doing the booking process, and fair play to the BBC doing it, but they won't have the insight that you've got as a booking, as somebody who promotes that. Oh, well, why weren't Paramore just included in the first? Well, Paramore weren't included because their North American tour is finished up, and then they've got a single at release, and then they'll be added to that, or anyone else. I'm using them as an example, obviously, very high profile one, but the BBC aren't thinking about that. They're not thinking that, like, oh, Slam Dunk's putting that together. They've still got those artists up their sleeve. And that's a tough. And you mentioned, I don't want to take that a contest. You're saying this is for Trees, but not so much for Art Tangent and Damnation. And that is not because the conversation is not important, Art Tangent and Damnation as well. But there has to be an understanding that level of artists are just. I mean, you go tomorrow on there and just find me non-cis male, non-white, non-straight, full lineups for Damnation, Art Tangent, and shows what that would look like, and give us that, like, because those artists, they do exist, but not in the same way that your Mogwais and Explosions in the Skies. And I mean, what is it with fucking old white dudes like looking at their shoes that they write post rock? You know what I mean? It's like in death metal, they're just not. You list the top 100 death metal bands and show me how many of those bands we can go and hit those markers, even if that's what you're doing, if you're starting the booking process like that. So it's difficult, yeah, and it's like, it's not just easy as, oh, don't book Mastodon, but book Kitty. It just doesn't, that's not the real world.
No. And I can hold my head high with Arctangent and be like, the leaders of the scene, like Rolo Tomasi and Brutus will play, and Svalbard will play every couple of years. They always do. And I will try and book Chelsea Wolf until such time Chelsea Wolf says yes, So I feel like with Arctangent, I kind of got a list. Almost got a list of every possible band I can book. I know what it's much easier. It's much more in a box.
Yeah.
This is what Arctangent is. Whereas Trees, there's thousands upon thousands of bands. So yeah, I think. Well, look, I thought it was worth quickly just covering that again because it just feels like it's gone up a notch.
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely. And it's also a conversation I want to have. I mean, I feel quite confident about having that conversation because we've had so many female artists and had them without any consideration. I feel there is good, strong bands out there. And like, I mean, this year should have worked out that it was Cradle of Filth featuring a woman, Chelsea Wolfe, and Bleeding Through featured. So your very top of your Damnation Bill top three bands would all have featured women. Chelsea Wolfe said no.
Yep.
So there's not much more I can do about that, and I can't make her say yes. So, and we would also like love Brutus with Svalbard played a dozen times, Employed to Serve are playing this year. I don't want to go back over what we've done and
No.
to the people versus two promoters. Let's answer the masses questions.
Let's do it. Okay.
Am I starting?
You
Right.
are.
So, remember the guy Jason? I'm sorry if I'm fucking absolutely butchering that, right, mate? Just as part of the podcast now. He asked a question and get cut off as Tom Begley came into the episode. Then he posed to say, I think I asked a question and get cut off, but I don't know what the question was. He couldn't remember his own question. So I've made up a question for you, which I think you'd want to know. Ja.
Incredible.
Gav and James, I'd love to know your top 3 Deftones records.
Okay, well, do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first?
Well, we go. I mean, number one, I think it has to be White Pony for both. I mean, of course. Oh, mate, see that look you give me when I say that Metallica is fine. I thought you were going to like White Pony.
I think everyone was expecting you to pull another St. Anger out the bag, mate.
See, it's weird, right? Because I was obviously picked. I made this question up on behalf of this guy who probably hates Deftones, and I'm sitting yesterday. And Deftones are a weird one because they're easily one of my favourite bands, and I think White Pony's easily a top 10 album ever. But after that initial up to White Pony, when I was obsessed with them, and then I wasn't that bothered with Saturday Night Wrist, and then they had the Diamond Eyes, which was special. See the albums after that, Gore and Oms. They're just kind of, I heard them, but they never grabbed me. Never like, am I as big a fan as I thought? And I was playing through some yesterday, like, holy fuck, and that track, and that, oh my god, Swerve City does start, it's an absolute banger. And I thought, see if I go on here tomorrow and James hits me with like one of my like, I say the passengers are belting, and he looks at me and goes, it's fine. And I'm going to give him that reaction that he gives me when I don't appreciate Mastodon.
Probably my favourite song, actually. Look, I agree with you. So I'm actually not prepared to commit to number 2 and 3 at the moment. So I do this weekly thing with my mates on Zoom where we've been doing it since lockdown, and we listen to 5 albums a week, mostly new albums, and we once a week we very geekily talk about them.
Sort of a gimpy version of this.
Yeah, it's basically book club, but you don't have to watch what you say. And you're just chatting to your mates, and you're not trying to, you're just giving your opinion on albums, right? So me, Alan, Scotty, we do this every week, and we've done full discographies of like Metallica, Tool, Queens of Stone Age, Iron Maiden, bunch of other. I mean, Iron Maiden, that was painful. It's a long discography where you take 2 months of your life and you commit to properly ranking the albums. So, and I'm such a music geek that I'm not prepared to tell you what my 2nd and 3rd Deftones album is without actually going and doing the work, and which I haven't done. And I find, much like what you said, those albums, they float around in the ether. And I think one of the problems with Deftones is, and it's not a criticism, is they've got a sort of identifiable sound, which does vary from record to record, but it doesn't vary in the way that someone like Metallica has just totally ripped the rule book up and started again at times. So Deftones are very consistent. I think all their albums are like 8 out of 10 or above.
Okay.
White Pony is in my top 10 of all time, and that's the only one I can really commit to. I think Diamond Eyes sticks out as probably one of my favorites. And the only thing I've got to say that you might think is controversial is the albums I never put on is Around the Fur or Adrenaline.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
my first
mate.
ever Deftones albums
I
were those
swear to God,
albums.
we were in such sync there that I thought, you know what, James, this is probably why this works, because you are a fucking genius, right? Because the correct answer, sorry, Ja, that he doesn't feel your question's good enough to answer, right? But the second answer is Diamond Eyes. It's White Pony, then Diamond Eyes, and then the third one's Adrenaline. Now, for different reasons. For different reasons, right? And I thought you were literally going to.
Does
And the ones that,
Adrenaline actually stand the test? Has it stood
yes.
the test of time?
Oh my God! See when they start like they start a route when they came on in the car yesterday. I mean, I've chose violence so many times when I started that gig. And fucking engine number 9 bored. Oh my God! It's 7 words. It's obviously not as polished as the later albums, but that's something about it that's just it's just so fucking raw, and the tunes have stood up to this time. Now, I really, when I went back through the self-titled Deftones again, I'm like, my God, actually, this is better than I remember. Like, these tunes really stand out. I remember listening to this quite a lot. Is this better than Adrenaline? But I listened to Adrenaline again. I was like, no, this has got its own wee special place in my mosh pit heart. But the reason I thought that you were just going to nail every part of this conversation is when you say that I don't go back to Around the Fur, which I don't go back to Around the Fur either, and Saturday Night Wrist are the two that I'm a bit like, bit more wishy-washy, but no, at the last hurdle, at the last Deftones hurdle, you don't listen to Adrenaline.
but, but I would love to go back and do this properly, because even when you do it with Metallica, I was surprised that my number 1 Metallica album ended up being Injustice for All. And I was surprised that, well, when I did Tool, like we should talk about Tool another day, actually, because you're a big Tool fan, aren't you?
I'm a big
But
Tool.
Fear Inoculum fucking punches very high for me, and it's controversial. Not the number 1 album, but it's fucking high. So I think when you go back and revisit these bands, it's actually quite surprising, and I want to do that with Deftones. Other than Nothing's Beating White Pony. No.
Okay, right. We're now 45 minutes in. We have not answered a genuine first question.
Okay. Right. Well, and we're not going to answer any genuine new questions yet either, because we're just going to mop up the 3 we didn't get to last week. So Laura Buckley says, and this is, let's not forget, this was the Road to Damnation episode. So this is a Damnation question. Do you make a conscious decision to book bands from different genres? Is there a ratio you use, e.g. 30% death metal compared to 10% post-rock?
I mean, no, you've got it in your head what you want, and you sort of tick it. Like, as at the start of it, you do that. Can you get the big bands? Now, the genre at that point does matter. If it's Cannibal Corpse, will not be death metal. If it's Electric Wizard, that'll be Doom. But at the start, you're just going for the big bands you can get your hands on. And then you look at the lineup when you're 7, 8 bands, and you go, there's not really any black metal. We really should go and chase a couple of black metal bands, or there's not really any death metal. Or like this year, we've ended up, me being such a big post-rock fan and having post-rock bands consistently play through the years, there is no post-rock at this year's Damnation, not on the Saturday anyway. There's some adjacent to post-rock on the Friday, but you're like, well, that's no deliberate, but at the same time, it's not the big genres are definitely death metal, black metal, doom, bit of grindcore, bit of post-metal. So if you don't get a post-rock band, you're a bit like, okay, well, fair enough for that. We'll try and hit that target next year. But you don't start there, like everything you say, there's too many ifs, buts and maybes. Even your budget. I mean, it's easy to say, like, with the budget's here, 120 grand, and that headline slot's going to be 50, and one underneath that's going to be 10, and then it'll go 5, 5, 2, 2, 1. But ultimately, the band that becomes available for the second slot are worth 5. That's what you pay. And then maybe that money comes out the headliner pot. Maybe you just add it to it and you hope you sell the extra tickets. There's too many sliding scales and unknown grey areas when you start the booking process to go, we're going to spend this exact amount of money on this exact amount of genres, and this is how it's going to pan out, because you would never get there, and you tie yourself up in knots of the bands you wouldn't book that were available because you wouldn't think you were doing some sort of hitting some sort of markers that you'd imposed on yourself. So I notice if it's a full lineup of death metal that we're going to need more doom and great. Like, I will, if the top end of the bill's 2 or 3 death metal bands, we will make sure that there's doom and sludge grind elsewhere, and vice versa, no matter what genres do. So there's nothing in exact percentages. You feel the same way when you're booking?
Yeah, I mean, with ATG, I feel like I did that genre split list this year, which I will revisit once I've done some booking this year and be like, am I missing any any obvious things that we had last time? I won't be trying to hit a certain percentage, but I want to have some post rock. There'll always be post metal because it's probably my go-to. You know, I want to have a bit of prog. You know, we need some old school arctangent math rock. You know, I'm a hit in all those bases, so I'll definitely try to do that. I think it's a bit more tricky with Trees. I think with Trees, you kind of like see who your headliners are, and then start to build the lineup. Like I said, I sort of do that booking first, and then we kind of go from there. I mean, like we got some criticism this year at Trees that it wasn't heavy enough, so I'm trying to make one of the cave stage at Trees heavier this year than it was last year, like more sort of hardcore, not metal, but hardcore, and metalcore and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. I think frankly, you start with headliners, don't you? Then you start adding some smaller bands that you've seen coming through, and then slowly a bill starts to take shape. But I feel like at Arctangent, it's basically just like do a good lineup, people will come. Whereas at Trees, I need to hit certain groups. So yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely.
I mean, the only thing I'm slightly worried about on Arctangent this year is that I feel like we hit this group of people that are in Bristol that wouldn't normally come to Arctangent, that like Mogwai and Explosions and Spiritualized, and then they'll go into the Elephant stage and watch some of the more experimental stuff, and they're not metal fans, and actually the metal probably puts them off, but they like weird music, but they don't want necessarily to be heavy. I feel like getting those people to come back again, which was quite nice to have for me as a Bristol person, to feel like I really felt like Arctangent is much better known in Bristol this year outside of its core scenes. So yeah, that's on my mind as well.
That's interesting to see, because when I was at Arctangent, I was looking about and seeing that Damnation representation and just how much that crossover's become. Everyone wearing Damnation merch. Those tents had heavier bands watching them, like including Meshuggah, not a Damnation band, but that type of music that they would be into, like. All right, you get into next year as well. I mean, try to keep that's an odd audience to try and keep happy at both sides. So you're trying to get that experimental folk from Bristol that are in the Elephant and Barhamston. You also get the people who want A Sun's Journey Through the Night and Meshuggah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but then that's the beauty of Arctangent, isn't it? That's the way it works. As long as it's odd and there's enough choice to bounce about that field, then you should hopefully try and keep everybody happy.
Yeah, that is the plan. Okay, so Paul Atkins asks, do you really think that Damnation needs a big headliner to sell out? It seems to me that previous sellouts haven't included a band as big as Cradle of Filth, let's say. I know this year is selling really well, but I haven't seen that many folk actually singing about how they're going to Damnation specifically for Cradle. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so I did go back and check. This is the Han Solo guy who's like the Damnation's
trolled. Oh fuck yeah! So he's trolling us now.
I don't know if it's all one big troll with him. He's a very negative guy when it comes to Damnation. Like, he only pops up to tell you that Gav booked that because it's only bands he knows. Gav booked that because I've been booked 10 times before.
He's not the guy who did the Tintin thing, is he?
No. I mean, that's a bit of fun. There's no way this guy, when he come up with something like fucking Tintin, he would just have a picture of me fucking greeting in a corner if he could. So I don't know if it's all one, because he does it. He's got this thing to be in his bonnet about Damnation only rebooks bands, and I would say pound for pound across fucking any festival 20 years in, we are spectacular at not rebooking band for band. I mean, this lineup, 19 years in, has still got a bunch of exclusives, and even the ones you're going, oh, that's a reboot, and you're talking like Nails and Dragged Into Sunlight, you haven't played for fucking 10 years. So yeah. I don't know if it's all one big troll, because I'm pretty sure he also said that he would welcome back Zealand to Arctangent, which goes completely against any point he's making. So, and I think the Cradle of Filth thing is, I think he just doesn't like Cradle of Filth, and that's why he's like, in this protest, I'm not coming to Damnation because I don't like the headliner. So, to answer this question, do we need a headliner? Yes, unfortunately, with fans like Paul Atkins, you absolutely do, because they won't support you. They won't. They will. And I'm not saying that in any spiteful way. I'm not saying like your money. Like, you're entitled to do what you don't deserve. Damnation doesn't owe you anything. You don't owe Damnation anything. You don't think lineup's good enough, don't come. But you go to an event like Outbreak, and their fans are vocal about the lineup the year before or the year before that being better, but they're all there. 6,000 of them are all there. Even if it's just Basement, who played not headline a couple of years, everybody just turns out and supports it. Damnation's got a core of that, but you've got fans like Paul who will quickly just ditch you. You know what I mean? If it doesn't, so there's no way in the world with fans like Paul that you could possibly do a Damnation without a headliner. You absolutely need a headliner. You need a filth to bring in the extra couple of thousand fans who might not be Damnation fans at all and might never come back. So I unfortunately not until we get to a level like Outbreak where your fan base is genuinely behind you in significant numbers. Then no, we're always going to need a headliner, which I think is depressing. I think it's really depressing because Damnation could be such a better lineup if you had the freedom just to spread that money across 3 stages. That's my dream.
I just don't think it's how the festival season works. I don't really think it's even Outbreak. But they had headliners this year, didn't they? I mean,
yeah, no, they did that, and that's no. I mean, I'm Outbreak's fucking biggest fanboy. You know what I mean? I'm just saying when you're there and you've got a fan, they're selling the place out in advance, all 3 or 4 days of it, and you've got a fan base that are vocally saying, I didn't think that this lineup was as strong as your previous. That just shows you the level of support that those guys got. I mean, I don't know how the event they've got the week before Damnation selling, but I mean, if that ends up filling that venue, what is it? The band, the story of the year. That's a tour date. If they end up selling at our arena, it'll be a story of the year tour date. I mean, that support's just. I mean, you can't be anything but impressed with it. So, that's not a dig. It's but to answer this question, how could you possibly do 5,000-6,000 fans at Damnation without a headliner?
but I said the other day about like uniting the tribes and with a headliner, and I think that's what it does. And even if Cradle of Filth isn't your thing, it's going to be such a brilliant spectacle. And in the same way that Meshuggah is a brilliant spectacle, and or not in the same way, but in a different way. But they're both brilliant spectacles.
You've got a headliner there, you're like, shit, we're seeing some.
Yeah.
We know why they're headlining. Might not be your
Yeah.
type of music, but the theatre of it, the production of it, the fact that the 20 or 30 years of them doing this across the world in the biggest stages, I mean, they are a headliner. I mean, that's one bit you get right, that Cradle of Filth are a big band.
Yeah. Oh, and I just think if you ended up being like, well, Psy are going to headline our festival because we're not doing headliners anymore, even though they put on a great show, it wouldn't quite unite everyone in the same way that a name does.
Yeah.
And, I thought Download, as we discussed, really suffered for that this year. Like, Queens of Stone Age didn't unite the tribes at all, I didn't think. And so I'm a big like festival should end with a big headliner.
Big name.
That's my personal feeling.
There's a subconscious that you can't really put your finger on. Take your favourite band, right? Pick your favourite band, small level band. We'll call it, let's say Zealand Ardor. And Zealand Ardor are playing academy levels or like a Barrowlands, the garage. So you're thinking like 25 quid my ticket, right? But Zealand Ardor, still being your favourite band, say, right, okay, we're going to go to the academy, but we want the tickets to be 85 quid. You're like, I'm not paying 85 quid to see Zealand Ardor. No chance in the world there. An arena band or a stadium band, you just accept that it's 85 or 100 or 150 pounds, and no one's getting a real explanation for, well, why is that? I mean, the band's still going up stage, they deserve to make the money. It's your favourite band, they're going to play your favourite tracks. But that happens with festivals. You put Nails or Gatekeeper or Neo Oblivious Garis, they might be your favourite band. If you stick them at the very top of Damnation and say this is your headliner, that same fan's like, I'm not paying £80 for it. Yeah. It's like, just because you're accustomed to paying for the Metallica, for the Iron Maiden, and then at your level, Mogwai and Meshuggah, and then our level, Cradle of Filth or Converge, and that's why you're paying the ticket money. So, I feel like if you did, even if I would very much like to not have the pressure of having the headliners and spread that money across, that is a tough sell to the crowd, that you're paying this money, but there's not that big name you'd be used to.
Yeah. Okay, good. Final question on the sort of road to Damnation stuff. James Wilkes asks, given Gav has a huge love of more indie and alt-rock acts like the National, Modest Mouse, Manchester Orchestra, would he consider putting on a second festival to indulge in that side of his music taste, much like James has indulging in his weird side with ATG?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a dream come true, but I mean, the problem with that is, well, these bands that he's met, when you were able to do that with your taste for ATG and you go and Fuck Buttons and Future of the Left or 65 Days of Static, they're very manageable bands that you had the experience of booking, and you could go then and then you could flesh that out with some of the, and to where you are now, that you're bringing these bands in for pelagic labels and Big Scenic Nowhere and like these crazy plays where you're like, oh, I like this band, and Gav, nobody listens to them, but I think they're great and I'm going to give them a platform in the UK. Well, he's talking about bands that are playing arenas, which is kind of at that level of music's what I'm into. Not by choice, but I think that's when they come onto my radar. When you're the National, Modest Mouse, Manchester Rockstar, I don't hear about these bands. I don't even know where someone would hear about these bands when they are the 50 capacity basement dwellers. You know what I mean? Or who they're sold to, or where they perform. So where would I start? I mean, because you're just the best will in the world. I'm not starting a festival with those kind of names with a couple of £1 million in my back pocket, and then not even the marketing nows to tackle it. I mean, I can promote metal quite easily because everything we've got's pointed in that direction. How did not good to go back to Outbreak again when they pivoted so heavily from hardcore to hip hop with that Denzel Curry. My big thing there was like, how would he get into the Denzel Curry fan? Like, if this is a Hatebreed and a Converge and a Basement fan, how are you reaching the Denzel Curry? Because everything you're putting on your market and your mailing list, it's all going to hardcore fans. So that's what I would feel like. How do you reach these other fan bases with 20 years experience doing it?
Yeah, well, you're starting again, aren't you? And if you're going to do what all of our festivals did, which is start small and build up, then the only way to do that is to go and work out if those sort of acts even exist in the smaller level. And you've got to really bury your head into another scene. And actually, like, the amount of bands I know that fit Arctangent now is hundreds of times bigger than when we started in 2013, because I've spent 10 years digging into it. No one knows everything about everything, do they, music-wise?
And there is one up here, I mean, backed by the same people that do Transmit and Tea in the Park, that called Connect, and they have tried this now several attempts and booked. In fact, all those bands, I had National, Modest Mouse played it, maybe not had Manchester Rockstar, and it's failed. Like, they tried it in a beautiful castle set, and I went to both of them. It failed. They've tried it again in Edinburgh. I don't know if this year that it happened or if it's coming back for next year. It's just, that's a tough market. It's a tough market to get into when you don't have, because you're going to your 40 somethings in the middle of summer and saying devote yourself to this the way that someone in their early 20s would maybe do for Trees, or a metal fan would do for Damnation. And clearly that's not an easy sell, because people in their 40s have just got other shit going on. I mean, they might have disposable income, they might be willing to go and see the bands, but they're not getting feverish about it the same way that our fan bases do, which, I mean, if Connect can't fucking make it work, there's no chance I'm making it work.
No, it's a challenge to say. I reckon you could do it, but
go on, Gav.
Let's get some good podcast content if you start a new festival. Okay, let's move on. More questions. So Luke Rees asks a question for Gavin McAnally. Where are you going on holiday this week?
He's a prick, isn't he? He's a prick. His hot sauces are shite. We're lying. It's just because he pays us so much to say that. Fuck. So wait, I went 2 holidays. I mean, that's it. I've had 2 holidays. Well, 3 if you include the other one earlier before the summer. And that's it. I'm getting grief for going on holiday every week. I mean, come on. At 1 minute, you're getting told, listen, take a break, you're going to have burnout. And next thing, you're getting called Tintin and going on your adventures too often. Fuck you. Fuck you, look. Steve Russell, have either of you noticed any change in how agents deal with you since establishing the Behind the Curtain podcast, positive or behaviour? Let's go with that bit first.
I mean, I not really. I mean, I think overall the agents have been supportive of the podcast. Some of them listen every week. I think some of them dip in and out. And there's definitely some of them. One said to me at Arctangent, "Are you doing that podcast, aren't you?" And I could tell he was basically saying, "I'm not fucking listening to your podcast, mate. I'm way too important to listen to your podcast." And, that's fine.
Yeah. I'm still mentioning the fact that happens.
Yeah. But I think that overall, very supportive of it, and I want us to book an agent in actually to come on in the next couple of months and really dig into some more stuff with agents. So, and I don't think it's massively affected. You get the odd like Saki message being like, can't believe you do. I didn't know you did ground transport. It's like, okay. So I feel like my honesty might be costing me a little bit more money, but overall, I think there's not been a big change really.
Yeah, I would agree, and you have to remember these booking agents, they deal with egos and the bands that this is like, for what we're doing, having a few people listening to you in a podcast, it's like they're dealing with big guys that are on stage, working in tens and thousands of people in front of them every other night. So I don't think they're a bit like, oh well, these guys are going to get a bit out. I just don't see them seeing any big change in it. They're a bit like, okay, the podcast is the podcast, the business deals for the festivals or the business deals for the festivals. I feel like if we ever crossed the line, that was a big fear at the start. I feel with people who weren't us, like how far are they going to go? Where are they going to cross the line? And after doing Damnation versus, I feel like I'm quite comfortable where the line is, and we don't cross it. Maybe a wee bit more honest than some booking agents would like, but it's not for them to decide. And aye, it's been fine. Anything I've heard about it's been pretty positive. And weirdly, from like European agents that you don't really deal with much, and then they'll mention something and they'll drop a wee in, like, and James will like them for Arctangent. Like, what the fuck is James and Arctangent going to do with this? And they're like, oh, I listened to the pod. Like, oh, so am I like your back door now to get the band into like Damnation and then Arctangent? So aye, nothing but positivity, but no like any major change in the way the deals would get done anyway.
I mean, that's a good point you make there, because there is a bit of a thing where now the agents know that me and you talk, and they know that we get on. And I actually had a conversation yesterday about a band, and I basically said to the agent, you know, Gav's going to want that, and I'm really going to want that. So let's just be open about that idea. I'm not interested in like going behind Gav's back on this. Let's just be like, you know, we both want that booking. 100% we both want that booking.
You mentioned Band X yesterday, or earlier you were talking to, and I was like, I think I can guess who Band X is. And it's like, well, that's the nature of the business, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, James, but we've been pals for 34 episodes. Please don't take that band. Like, book your festival. I mean, worst case scenario, I don't get the band and then I'm going to come and see them. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the way it's going to go. It's like, you see some petty shit in some of those forums as well. It's like, somebody, Incineration, Stephen Moss and the team for Incineration are smashing it this year. Absolutely. Yeah. Blood Incantation, Triptychon, they've got was it Spectral Wound, Conjurer in there. So it's shaping up to be a right good lineup. And I want to see Incineration do well. But it's Blackbraid, right? Somebody announced Blackbraid, and someone came on and went, I preferred Fortress's lineup. I'm like, what the fuck? How are they two things? Wait, what are you talking about Fortress for? It's like, go tell Fortress how amazing Fortress is, and then either tell Incineration they're doing good, or shut the fuck up. It's like, or even come in and say, I'm not paying for Incineration because I don't like this lineup. Why are you comparing that? It's so fucking playground petty. Oh, I prefer Rachel to Jennifer because she brought me in sweeties today. It's like, fucking, people are so fucking petty with it. I'm like, what? How is that your thought process of, if one festival announces this, it's you're I prefer this other festival. So I don't
you can like them all, right?
I don't even know what I'm doing now, but I like them all.
Well, look, what that has made me think is I've never been to Incineration, and that is a great lineup. So let's go to Incineration. And actually, I had a great idea, Gav, which I know you like me to talk about these in public rather than behind the scenes.
Always.
If we could do 2 promoters, 1 pod at other festivals, then we get to go to these festivals. So we know Becky from Roadburn's listening, right? Maybe Stephen from Incineration is. Maybe they've got a suitable stage for 2 promoters, 1 pod.
The Dutch are fucking useless though, in the nicest way. You know what I mean? It's like I couldn't order a hamburger. I couldn't have a fucking hamburger. What chance have the Dutch got of me on stage going, fucking cuss these metals hands and dinner sells left till it burns?
Okay. Well, we can make it work. We can make it work.
If you get a festival and you have got a big budget for the top music podcast in the UK, then go through our booking agent.
Lovely. Okay. Next question is from Stephen Short. James said on the pod this week that it would be too soon to have Zeal and Ardor at ATG next year, as they played in 22. However, Armin Ra and Caspian, among others, also played ATG in 22 and were back this year. So my question for both of you is, how do you decide on repeating bands who've played before, and does it vary depending on the act? Well, Stephen, I did some research on this, and Zeal and Ardor played Arctangent in 2018, 19, and 2022, which, if you take COVID out, is 3 years running, right? So I think, on balance, Zeal and Ardor are overexposed to the Arctangent audience, and as they get bigger, it would be nice to give them a really amazing slot, and maybe an extra year gap would help that. Having said that, Armin Ra, it's worth pointing out that Zeal and Ardor weren't even a band until 2017. So they basically became a band and then played ATG every year for 3 years.
Yeah.
So whereas Arm & Ra have been a band since way, way, way before Arctangent even started, and they've only played twice. So it's a different thing. Having said all that, it's a gut feeling thing. Any given year, I'm just like going with my gut. And one thing I might not have admitted on here before, which I am going to admit now, is that at some point in the Arctangent booking for last year, believe it or not, there was a very squeaky bum time where I was like, fuck, this is going wrong. I haven't got what I want. This is before Mogwai appeared out of the, you know, Mogwai, my saviors. So I actually went for some guaranteed crowd-pleasing bookings, and Arm & Ra and Caspian were those, because I was doing these left field bookings like Electric Wizard and Clowncore, which I was not confident about. I was like, is this right for ATG? So those are like my safety blanket. Shall I book and saw Richard Mafar again? Yes. It's like, is that going to please like 50% of audience? Yes, it is. Yeah. So you can go and do all these like mad spiritualized Clowncore, Electric Wizard, not really pure Arctangent bands.
Yeah.
As long as they sit alongside the pure stuff.
Yeah. I remember the Arm & Ra thing happening, because I remember you having that. And is that, I mean, if I'm not pulling the curtain back too far, is that not the reason that moved to a different stage and headlined the same? So it felt different to the main stage slot the year before?
Of course.
So there's a bit of nuance in that as well. It's not a case like, there's James just forgets that he books Arm & Ra. It's a bit like, no, I was at a situation where I needed an Arm & Ra. I needed a top tier post-metal band that everyone was going to like. And the fact that they played the year before wasn't ideal, but it's what the festival needed there. Whereas the Zealand Ardor situation, as you've explained, and I'm pretty certain this is that Han Solo chance off earlier. This is when he came back and says, Zealand Ardor coming back to Arctangent's fine. I mean, fucking 4 years in the bounce. I booked Morn for the first time in 20 years. Like, so derivative. So derivative.
Yeah, well, you know, some bands, look, I think because I've got there's a lot of bands there, so you don't have to watch Zealand Ardor if you don't want to. And I might book them this year because I don't yet know where the lineup's going to go. I've got these, you know, once you've got these big headliner offers that you wait a month and a half on, and then they don't happen, you suddenly like, fucking hell. Okay.
Yeah, panic sets in.
All of a sudden, you're like on the phone to some of your
to quickly answer that one, Stephen, just so you've got a damnation, we have never rebooked any band in the history of the 19 years, year on year, other than Solstifer, and that was because we locked so many fans out of 2014. They had so many complaints. We brought them back in 2015 and made them play the main stage. So, any bands that we rebook, there's a bit of thought goes into it. It's generally not for several years after. And there's something's new to present. And people probably hold like, you booked Carcass again. There's so many bands we booked in that 2021 panic year, but that was just what was available. Listen, like when Carcass and Paradise Lost and all these bands were available, we were ripping their arm off and saying thank you for saving the festival that has now got 17 slots spare. It was never like, but mate, you played 4 years ago, you know. I don't think we should have you back. So, Sam, fucking surnames, man. Korea. You happy with that?
Yeah, good.
Been at Arctangent since, I need to stop leaning away from the mic. Been at Arctangent since 2016. In the past, you've had a healthy amounts of acts from the other side of the world, Japan, China, etc. With Toe, massive fermenting drugs, Chinese football. What are the challenges in booking these bands? How do you book these bands? And will you continue to book them? He hopes to get Toe back at Arctangent.
Yeah, well, nothing's changing on that front. I mean, Psy played this year. I think they're from Japan. And there were bands this year from all over the world. There was no conscious decision to change our policy. Sometimes it's more from one country than another. Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is cost. Anything from Japan and China is going to cost a lot of money to come in. Often those bands, you know, when I fly in a band for Trees, they're super expensive, but they're usually, they've just done an academy tour or whatever. So you're like, well, that's fine. They're expensive. So when you fly in a band like Psy, or even, I mean, you know, Massive Fermenting Dregs, you mentioned, Chinese football, these bands have no proven huge ticket worth in the UK. So you're paying a chunk of money for them to get them over here without really any knowledge that they're going to be worth the tickets. And of course, that's the beauty of the ATG audience. Everyone's like, yay, Chinese football. And you're like, oh, good. I didn't know if anyone was going to have known them or not. But They do. So
no,
right.
no, when we're going to see that beautiful thing, that cross section of that do sell the tickets, and then people know we lost the sea. We lost my boys. We're doing it, lads. We're doing it.
You need to be on the payroll with them, I think, don't you? But
A few fucking bands need to get me right in their payroll.
yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm still waiting for Bosk to get me on the t-shirt endorsement. But yeah, so look, and he also sort of like, he asked how do you find and book these bands? And basically talking to booking agents, listening to people's recommendations on our forum, doing my weekly call with my mates where we do 4 or 5 new albums every week in depth, properly listening to music, and then talking to people like Gav and Miles and Matt and Mitch and all these people that are just my sort of musical circle that go to me, have you heard this band? Have you heard that band? And I'm always just like trawling the internet for bands. There's no way of doing it.
Yeah, the China-Japan link's probably just coincidental, isn't it? When you come across
absolutely
Poe and then you're a bit like, oh, this is fucking great. You're not sitting there thinking, oh, this is for China or Japan. I mean, when you first hit Google, you're hoping, I hope this is for Bristol. That's what you're hoping.
Yeah.
And you go there, it just turns out it's fucking China, and you're like, okay, that is going to be more problematic, but if it can happen, it can happen. Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Sparkle B. Lisa. In fact, did I just read the last one? Fuck it, I'll read this one as well. For both of you, hypothetically, you've won the Euro Millions. No, she's won. Hypothetically, I have won the Euro Millions, and I want to give you 2 million per festival. Trees, Arctangent, Damnation, no strings attached. It's not just for booking bands. What do you spend that money on? You do Trees, I'll do Damnation, and you do ATG?
Okay. Well, for Trees, I think it would be cool to do something mad and immersive. Like, when you go to like Boomtown, or if you go to Glastonbury and go to the nighttime stuff at Glastonbury, where you're like walking down streets and there's like, you can go into clubs and it actually feels like you're in a club. You're not in a field anymore. It's properly immersive experiences, which they just cost an absolute fortune to do, and it's not our core business. I know Dan and Rob would love to have the budget at Trees to do something like that, and I think it would be amazing. So that would be pretty cool, I think.
Okay, with Damnation, I mean, I wouldn't move too far away from the ethos of Damnation, making that about the bands, but I would spend £2 million. That whole car park would look like a grass football field. There'd be plenty of tents with heaters inside them. There'd be a beautiful merch area which would be floored, heated. All the seating and that would be there. The drinks would probably subsidise the drinks to make sure that people weren't spending too much of that. Could probably subsidise the merch a wee bit too. Make sure the production that the bands had on stage was like they were playing download main stage. And we had the crew there because £2 million, fuck's sake, they get it every year. I mean, if it's not just to spend on the bands that did Nails would show up and have the best performance, 17-minute performance of the entire life. Because everything would be there. It would be pure luxury, mainly for the fans, but also we would invest heavily in the infrastructure behind the scenes for the bands. But the bits that with Damnation, you're a bit like, I wish this felt a bit more like you're in a field at 2,000 trees in July, and it's not a concrete car park, things like that. I mean, really, but again, nothing that would distract you too much from the fact that the bands that you came to see were going to be on stage, and going to say, like, not to go away somewhere else and be like, let's say immerse myself in this signing talk or guitar masterclass. It's like, no, go and see the fucking bands, go and see Norma. They're gonna be great. They're flown in to do this. Go and see them, and with the best production available. So please, Sparkle B. Lisa, win that money.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for Arctangent, I'm going to pretend I've spent it on something else, and I'm going to spend it on convincing the Mars Volta to play Arctangent, and they are going to play every single one of their albums in full, plus all the side projects. It's basically going to be Mars Volta Fest everywhere you look.
2 million securing that deal. 2 million is securing that. Even when Mars Volta are having to do all their albums, 2 million securing that, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's gonna turn it. And they have to do, obviously, the Saturday night main stage headline slot is a set with my ego fully turned up to full, selected by me. They play the songs I want in the order I want. Yes.
Video wall, just your face in it.
Just me nodding.
Looking
happily.
down on them with money getting chucked up.
Yes, good.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, but like I think we've done that too. I mean, Jack Fryer, Keir Starmer asked for advice on how to help festivals. What do you tell him?
Well, look, go back and listen to the episode we did on cancelled festivals, because the Association of Independent Festivals call for a VAT reduction for festivals to 5% is still a thing. The last number I heard, which was in June, I think, is that there's now over 50 festivals have been cancelled this year. It feels to me like the rock scene is doing really well. I've got some behind the scenes information on sales for next year for rock festivals. And I know Trees and ATG are doing great. And there's a couple of others I've heard are doing brilliant. So I suspect rock is in good place, but the festival scene in general is not. But generally, Keir Starmer should support the arts in the UK like some European countries do. Labour don't tend to do much of a better job at this than the Tories, really. They're all fucking going to watch opera and ballet, aren't they? And they don't see the value in rock music, alternative stuff. So support it, fund it, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's the answer. I mean the idea of funding. I mean, if we're going to give some pensioners some heating grants, I don't think we're going to get some money to book Immortal. But if they could just that 5%, that's the answer. The 5% is better to get your 5% tax from a festival that's happening than 0% fucking tax for a festival that's cancelled.
Yeah,
Help
from the
those
50 that have gone.
And the 50 that have gone are not giving you your 20% VAT. Never mind 5% that they could have gave you if you allowed all their ticket sales to go. So it worked during the pandemic. It was a massive help. It helped festivals like ours come out the other side and keep the margins where they needed to be. And that 15% back in our direction would be absolutely huge. In the transport industry, if you own a bus company, you don't pay VAT. If you sell fucking condiments, you don't pay VAT. It's not like you're asking for something completely exclusive that's so outlandish and not there. I mean, other sectors don't pay VAT. Well, all this sector's asking for, can you reduce it to 5%? We'll meet you at 10. Reduce it to 10%. Give us a couple of years. Like, help things along.
Yeah.
Keep people in jobs. And then get your 10% VAT back to you. But there seems to be no stomach for it whatsoever, because Keir Starmer, the Tories and everyone in between are probably like, well, who gives a shit if Truck Festival is had to cancel and move on with the thing? It's like, aye, it's a sad thing, but that is the answer. The short answer is reduce the VAT and and people that don't understand how it works, the corporation tax is still the corporation tax. You're still paying 20% on your final profits. It's not like the VAT is just an added tax that you see. Unlike restaurants or where you've got so much vatable goods, when you buy everything, you buy your fridge, freezer, and your meat's not, you can claim so much VAT back. There's almost fucking nothing for Damnation to claim back on. They get a few bands that are VAT registered, a few hotel rooms, a wee bit of van hire. I mean, the backline hire. The VAT is fucking insignificant that we can claim back against the 20% we have to give it for every single ticket sale.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, next question. Benno Campbell asks, does seeing the amount of merch of a certain band at your festivals influence your consideration of whether you'll book said band? I'm thinking about the absolutely nuts amounts of Malevolence merch at Trees this year. Okay, well, firstly, thanks for the tip off, because I hadn't noticed. So Malevolence it is, headline in the Cave. No, they're probably too big for the Cave, aren't they? Main stage, that'll wake you all up. So I don't notice. I mean, walking around my own festival, I've got other shit to be thinking about than who's wearing merch. But that is an interesting thing, I think. And we do look at the merch sales, which is fascinating, to get a report at the end to see who sold the most merch. I meant to mention this on the ATG review, but I don't think we ever did, that Bosk won the merch. Yeah. They won the merch war. The highest grossing band at Arctangent was Bosk. Fucking brilliant. I mean, isn't that just amazing when you think about it?
It's no surprise to me because I don't know if they possibly did sell the most amount of merch at Damnation last year, but that's the variable. The fact is, if you do your merch right, it doesn't matter how much. Like, I love Amon-Ra and I want to wear Amon-Ra merch, but I go to the merch store at Dunk to buy an Amon-Ra t-shirt and I pick it up and it's in fucking gilding and it's like a potato sack and I'm a bit like, and then I see the gold merch beside it and that's in stainless steel or Sols or AS Colour and it's a bit of quality. I'm like, I'm just going to buy the fucking gold one. I mean, it's like I wanted the Armin Rabble, and Boss do that across. That's not just about the style, but they have got several different prints of every style. Then they've got the jogging bottoms. Then they've got the rolling mats, and then they've got the soaps. So you're getting up and you're going, right, well, Mogwai's get this. I'd have loved the Mogwai tee, but it's a pretty basic standard t-shirt. Like, well, the Bosks get 40 different options. So I did it. Or if you're just a band like Converge aren't bigger than Opeth, but I guarantee you put the two side by side. Converge merch, just anything with a fucking Jane Doe print in it sells. I mean, the link to that, I'd know those figures as Tom Begley from Boss because their merch down. Some bands just have nailed their merch, and Malevolence are one of those bands that have nailed their merch. So it's.
Mate, I was at my sink. Yes, this is true. I was at my sink a couple of days ago, and I was like, is this Bosk soap? And I'm like, Lizzie, what the fuck is this? She's like, oh yeah, Tom Begley gave it to me at Arctangent. It's like, they're fucking, their merch is everywhere. I've got a Bosk t-shirt on currently. I've just taken my Bosk hat off.
You had your Bosk sauce, and then you washed your hands with your Bosk fucking soap.
And then I'm going to roll a spliff in a minute on my Bosk rolling tray. I'm not, Mum, by the way.
I'm not, Mum. That apple was the only time. The apple was the only time. Talking quick interlude for the merch. Pills were obviously completely gone. These black t-shirts are now sold out. I think there's one 3XL. I think there's 19 white t-shirts left. The Two Promoters One Pod merch is all but sold out, except for a few of those white t-shirts. What we're doing next, James? People are calling for mugs, zippers, fucking windbreakers. We need to keep this ball rolling.
Drinking game, aren't we?
Oh, but in the drinking game, I mean, there's been no takers on actually how to get that process started, but I think mugs, zippers, and fucking windbreakers are what we've got experience of.
Oh, mate, the windbreakers went down a storm at Arctangent. Football shirt. The home kit can be in Celtic colours and the away kit, Man United. Lovely.
Mate, now we're talking. Bring this stuff up publicly. This is where your best ideas come, right? Boom. Oh, that'll go down well in the west of Scotland, eh? A green and white hoop, Two Promoters One Pod top.
Amazing.
Mark Redman, now that you're both so famous, do you feel you've changed in any way?
Mate, talking of trolls, this is my oldest friend from school, so tell him to fuck off and let's move on.
Mark, for the bottom of my heart, fuck off.
Good, lovely. Gav, we've exceeded our self-imposed time limit on this episode, so I think we should leave.
Do you want to finish with Lisa? Lisa Gonzalez. We've done such a terrible fucking job of this, James, man. It's like, let's get on and get through 20 questions. Let's try and make identities. And what do we get after the ones that were the old questions? It's 5 or 6. We're further behind them when we started. Right, let's at least do Lisa's, and then because we've still got the sub of the week that I've got the chosen on the record I need to discuss, and then choose someone else for the next pod. So let's quickly do Lisa. Oh, I'll read it as well. Lisa Gonzalez. How do you two meet? Give us a love story. And in another dimension, when you two are co-organise a festival, on which points would you agree and disagree the most? So how did we meet, James?
Well, we have talked about this before, I think. You emailed me to invite me to Damnation.
Right.
I came to Damnation. Me and Cy came. I don't know who else came with us, but me and Cy came to Damnation. We met there. Then I invited you to curate the stage at Arctangent. So then we're in 2013 territory at that point.
Right.
And then we've been at multiple festivals over the years together. We were at Roadburn together one year. And we didn't go together, but we met there. Seen you at Download a bunch of times, Bloodstock. And we have stood in many a bar having a beer, haven't we? And we chatting about festivals. And I mean, the Bloodstock during COVID, we had an absolutely brilliant time in the backstage bar. I don't think we saw any bands. But
we just abused Hayden Britland for.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we just mixed through festivals more and more over the years. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and I suppose that came to a head when the Damnation versus then the live pod. That's the one that kind of sat with me like, people really enjoyed that chemistry, despite that being an odd spot to just flop two people on a stage. And then obviously that led to this, which is now I speak to you a lot more often now than I ever did. So aye.
Yeah.
There's your love story. And another dimension, we co-organise a festival. This would be tough, man. Having now worked with you on this for 7 months, you'd be fucking tough work, man. I was on the phone to Rob yesterday. And he's like,
Fucking hell.
is he? I said, look, I'm not like, because he goes, James, a puppet master. You're doing stuff for James without you realizing you're doing it. And I'm like,
Oh God.
you know what? I told him to start the Instagram. He done it, and now I fucking manage Instagram. He did puppet master me. He fucking did puppet master
That
me.
is, oh God, that is 100% not what's happening. Rob, you prick. Have a word, man.
So I co-organise where our two jobs are very, very, very similar in what we do, and that it wouldn't be problematic, but I'm sure we bump heads at some points with that. And then the fact that we don't overlap in so many other things, we would still need the same teams round about us to do all the other shit. So, aye, other than the fact that the two has come up with, I'm sure, an absolute exceptional lineup. Somebody else did ask, or did mention, what about you ever do a two promoters, one pod inspired thing? Maybe for a bit of fun somewhere down the line if you get local bands, something in a venue, or off the back of the live. I mean, what we said, we'd never start a festival together because just starting festivals, no matter who you're involved with, is a huge pain in the balls. But is there something down the line where you could do? Remember, you've done at 83s, something like that? Aye, of course. And it would be, I'm sure it would be good fun and successful. But aye, the co-organising something, working with you, mate, beyond this podcast, it might be the end of me.
Mate, we're just getting started.
Okay. Right, so the super sub last week, guy was named Gavin Thompson. This is the best way to reach back to us if you hear that. So via the Ko-fi, which is the fundraising page we've got, or the subscription page, he sent me a direct message, which was just great because it saved me having to try and chase him across whatever I don't know if the listeners use Instagram, Twitter, fucking Facebook. I'm just picking a name out of a hat. So, aye, if your name's picked next, drop us a message via the Ko-fi page, and then that's the easiest way for me to keep track. He was top bloke. He said, look, I support the festival, I support the pod the same way I do when I buy my records and go to gigs. I'm giving you money because it's something that I consume, and I didn't need a reward for it, but thanks for doing this. He chose an on the record pick, and he said, I want to pick a song by The Masked Ball by Pomegranate Tiger from their album Boundless. For me, this is a 10 out of 10 album and a perfect example of instrumental progressive metal. Would be amazing to see them at Tangent one day. So,
Right.
first question then, have you heard them?
No, I don't know that band at all. So, yeah, I'll check them out.
Sounds right up your street. The Masked Ball by Pomegranate Tiger. That sounds right up your street.
It does, doesn't it? It does.
So
okay,
that'll be added
pick.
to on the record. Thank you so much, Bill. Before you pick, I need to go into the Damnation Stein of subscribers. The super sub for the next episode will be Russell Bills. I think that's the guy who does our Apple playlist. So thanks first off for that, Russell. And be as inventive or creative as you want to ask a question, add to on the record. Somebody suggested I should review a Metallica album.
That's a great idea.
Aye, that'll sound a lot like my review of Trap. So, aye, I'm so glad people are getting involved in this. It's a nice wee bit to add to the podcast. Thanks for that, Gavin. And Russell, you're up next. James, what have you got for us?
Lovely. Okay. I was thinking to myself the other day that I have been banging on and on about the wild arts, and it doesn't really give a fair reflection of my sort of music taste in general across the old stuff I used to listen to. So I was like, who do I want to talk about? And I was like, I know who I want to talk about. Monster Magnet. So I fucking love Monster Magnet, and I don't know, and I always forget how much I love Monster Magnet, and their album Power Trip in particular from 1998 is fucking spectacular. Have a band ever mixed stoner rock and like classic rock / 80s rock before? I don't know if they have, but they fucking did on this album. And the song Power Trip is what I'm going to put on the playlist. It's an absolute solid gold fucking banger, and it makes me very happy whenever I put this album on. A big smile on my face. I love this.
Good. I feel like when you make these choices, it strikes a chord with the listenership. I feel like people enjoy these. I mean, I know I put Therapy on, but when you put Wild Hearts on, people were right into supporting that. Therapy was another popular hit, and I'm sure this one will be too. Okay, Monster Magnet. I am going with the aforementioned A. Williams, who all going well, by the time this podcast, which should have been announced yesterday, she released a new single, Splinter, which I have heard, and it's exactly what you'd expect. She has the voice of a fucking angel. When I see A. Williams live, you get lost in that voice. She's spectacular live, with a great band behind her, and this is up that street as well. I noticed in the press release she's described herself as a sort of post-metal doom songstress, which is about as close as you can get. It doesn't sit in post-metal, it doesn't sit in doom. In a lot of ways, it's kind of that gentle music you might have heard a relative play at their house, but it is a tad heavier. I mean, so sits in this weird spot, but works with the metal crowd, works with the rock crowd, and if post-metal doom songstress is as close we're going to get, that's the way I'll describe her too. Check that out. Make sure you catch that set. I'm hoping it's got a wee bit of that Nordic Giants energy about it. That whole walking into something, maybe expecting a bit of thrash or grindcore, and then next thing you know, you get this fucking voice of an angel coming out in the first thing in the morning, getting a bit emotional. So, really big fan. It took a long time to make this booking happen. I think people are a bit surprised about it taking so long, because Alex has been at several Damnations, and people see in the crowd like, why aren't you playing? But there is also like a drummer, like a guitarist, keyboard player. There's other things need to happen. You can't just because you show up at the venue, pick up the mic. It's no karaoke. So, good to finally get that one over the line.
Right, good stuff. Yeah, another long one there.
We said it. We started this one, and James was like, "Well, how long are we going before cut off?" We're not going over an hour and a half. That, which I think's about where we are now. That is our limit. I don't feel that longer than that does anyone any justice. So, fuck me, man. We'll try to get some of these through these questions in another format. This will come out as Q&A 6, but we need to get we just need to make the answers shorter, or use some of these questions as the crux of an episode if we've really got a lot to say about them, because otherwise we are going to be talking in a month's time with 400 unanswered questions and getting through another 6. So, James, until next week, big chat.
Pleasure, mate.